how the camera is moving, and we can use that information to match move our camera, the digital camera. So that is a very common technique, we use in matte painting, modern matte paintings. If you watch any movies like Avengers, or Batman or Superman, or all these Marvel superhero movies or DC movies, you see like crazy camera moves. The camera is going from one place to another, and they are fighting in alien planets sometimes, or they are fighting in the New York City, but the camera is almost moving in an impossible way, because these are digitally created environments. They're not real. They are 3D matte paintings. An example of that, this is a good example of those kind of matte paintings we do these days. I don't have a moving one, but I'm sure you guys already seen that. Like if you watch any of the latest Hollywood movies, you see a very dynamic camera move. But I can show you some digital matte paintings. Even on my portfolio, like these are the kind of environments we do these days. So let's cycle through these. Or if I just go to my reel over here, I can show you some of this. So these are the breakdown. You see how digital matte painting is done. Talking about alien matte paintings. So here, all these are individual pieces. We can move them into 3D space, and we get a lot of control using computers these days, because these are all like used in a software like Nuke we use for compositing. So even though they are like flat layers, we can easily make them look like 3D. It's a hybrid technique of 2D and 3D, and we call it 2.5D. We cover that a lot in the class we teach here at VANAS. So as you can see, this is a shot from Expendables 2. I worked back in 2012. Some of other features I've done. Here you would see how this 3D environment is made using matte painting. Like you can see, these are 2D elements, but they are projected onto a 3D environment. And we have like our camera, we have our lights, all sorts of things to make it work within the shot. You see another one. It's really old work, sorry about that. I haven't updated my reel for like 4 or 5 years now. Another example. So here's you can see there's some just to let you know, these are also some compositing here. Like this water is CG, so it's not really part of matte painting, just to let you know. So you can check some of my other reels also here. I have experience both in compositing and matte painting. So these are my compositing reel. So you find more of my compositing work over there. Yeah, just to talk a little bit more about my education. I studied my graduation in multimedia in Singapore. That was back in 2008. So that's my educational background, and right after that I worked in commercials in Singapore for some time, about 2-3 years. Then I moved back to India, where I'm really from, I worked on feature films there for a year. After that, I did a few years of freelance work. So the good thing about our industry is like, wherever you're from the world, you can travel a lot because these projects are scattered all around the world. So I did a lot of traveling, thanks to this industry. I worked in Bulgaria for a few months on Expendables. Then I went back home. I did some freelance for BBC in UK. Worked on this TV show called Strike Back. Maybe if you've seen it, I'm not sure. Work for freelance work, working at home for projects from USA, Singapore, all over the place. While I was looking for my next contract, which was in Istanbul. I went to Istanbul for five months. After that, I went to Beijing for a few months. Then again, back to my freelance work at back in my home. Because matte painting is something that you can do at your home. If you want to, you have that flexibility. It's not like other professions in this industry, like let's say compositing, for example. Even though I do compositing, I always work on site. I don't do compositing at my home. I don't have the the infrastructure for that most of the times. Then I was fortunate to work on Christopher Nolan's Interstellar as a compositor on 2014. After that, I did some freelance again. Then I went to MPC to work on Batman vs Superman. That was in Vancouver. I did some commercial work in Dubai for a year. Then again, I did a lot of TV series work in Toronto, Canada. And finally, I'm here in Mr. X. Mr. X, we do a lot of independent Hollywood movies. If you've seen Shape of Water, we worked on that. We are currently working on this feature film called Monster Hunter. That's coming out next year. I personally wrapped up working on this movie, as you can see here, this Brad Pitt movie, which would be coming out on May, I think, May next year. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening at Mr. X, and for sure, we are looking for matte painters here in Montreal, as you can see. We're always looking for people. So let me close that. So I'm gonna talk about the kind of skills we need as a matte painter. So I did kind of briefly talked about like what sort of workflow we have these days. It's kind of a 2D and 3D. I did mention that. So we do cover that, in our curriculum, because the curriculum at here in VANAS is designed by, I believe it's the head of matte painting at MPC Vancouver, Alex Genion. I worked with him when I was in Vancouver. So he's the one who designed the curriculum. So he did, he went through all the requirements, what we need for the industry these days, and it's a strong foundation. Then we cover the 2D side of it. Then we move on to 2.5D side of it, which is the hybrid technique we talked about earlier. And then we kind of touch upon the 3D side of it, how we would use the 3D matte paintings and push it more towards our 2.5D work. So it's a really comprehensive curriculum covering all the basic aspects of matte painting, including the foundations. So it's there's an intro course and there's also a 1-year diploma. The intro course will just give you an overview of what matte painting is and how is it used in films these days. And the diploma course is where you would go through a 1-year rigorous training of the foundations and then the basics of matte painting in Photoshop, and then we move to Maya. We cover a little bit of lighting and how these lighting passes from 3D software like Maya can be used in matte painting in Photoshop. And then from there, how we can take those into software like Nuke, where we composite and we finalize the matte painting. So you'll understand the whole the pipeline, like how it goes from uh, like something as a concept through the final stage of how we would deliver a matte painting to a compositor when you're working on a feature film or a TV series. So just to show you some examples of student work, you'd see what I just explained like here. And by the way, this is a college website. This is what you'll be logging on to. Here, you would have a dashboard which will show you your grades and stuff. You have a student library where you'll find some resources. You got a message board, and you got a also this VANAS board where you would see what other students are doing, which is a great thing if you ask me. So you can always have a comparison of what other people are doing. So right now I'm in this digital matte painting session where you can see what people have done during the past. And I've been teaching this course for past 3 years almost. So I've seen a lot of good students go through this institute. So as you can see, this was like one example here. So let me open up. So if I just open up the first one, so this is like the an example of a student who's doing the course, the final term of the course. As you can see, he has an inspiration where he draws the his basic composition, lighting cues, and all that, and he's doing a very 3D, like a very rough 3D block out of the whole thing. And from there, he goes to like some very basic 3D lighting, texturing, for this guy, for the scale reference of the whole thing. No, by no means these are not finished pieces. They're still learning, so there's a lot to improve. But still, it's impressive work at this level. So, and as you can see, there is a progress from one stage to another, and we really help our students go from different phases, and it'll also help them understand the pipeline. It's not just like I show you one picture and the next is a final. It never works like that. There's always a process, and that's where the key thing to understand, like how things work, and where you need to improve. And there's all, like I said before, there's a different techniques when it comes to matte painting. You don't have, some people are strong in 3D, they would use a lot of 3D. Some people are strong in 2D, they use a lot of 2D. So it's a very flexible workflow, and even though we use a lot of tools in matte painting, you can be good at one thing and you can excel at that. So if I open the final work, this is a final matte painting he ended up with. If I show some moving work, let me see. This is the final one before I close this for questions. This one. So as you can see, a matte painting that is camera projected and it's moving. So these are like a combination of 2D, 3D, the kind of stuff we were talking about earlier. And I think that's it. So I would like to take your questions if you have any. What is a compositor? Compositor is people, who finalize the work, as in you have a 2D elements, 3D elements, and you have something that is live action shot, right? So you got to take all your let's say Photoshop matte painting, and or let's say your 3D rendered images, and you have to combine it with the live action film, and that is compositing. That process is compositing, and Nuke is a most widely used software for compositing. There are different softwares we use for different things in this industry. A digital character is not a matte painting. Matte painting is a backdrop. We think of it as a background. It's a background work. The trees, those are actually edited and edited. It depends. We have a software called SpeedTree, which we could use to like render digital 3D trees, and then we could use them, or we could also like cut out 3D trees and then from photos, and we could use it in a software like Nuke to give it some 3D feel. What tools I use? I use a vacuum tablet. That's and you need a system with at least I would say 16 GB of RAM, a good processor, and good graphics card. How much work can you do from home? It depends how much work you can do. It's a very tricky question because it defines like the level of work you're at. If you're really good at what you do, you can always find work from home. But if you're just starting out, I would say get some experience working in studios and hone your skills, then look for freelance work, because you have to have a proven track record to people to send you work at home. It's a luxury you have, so you need to earn it. Yes, I do get reimbursed for my flight tickets and 2 to 3 weeks accommodation. Can you show a student matte painting good enough to take a job? I can actually. Let's try that. I don't know whether this is loading. Even this matte painting, this is a junior level matte painting. It's not bad enough. It's not. Sorry, it's not like bad. It's not like good enough or anything in the sense that this is a student level work. I wouldn't rate it as like a professional work, but in a student level work, this is good. Good enough to get a job. It's not bad at all. I think the most important thing is not like a kick-ass matte painting. It's more about how you understand the whole process. If you can, when you're applying it at a studio as a junior matte painter, they're not expecting like a super professional senior level work. What they're expecting is whether you understand the whole process and whether you have an attitude to learn. Because they don't want to explain you like the process. They don't have time for that. If you are good at basic tasks, if you're really good at basic tasks, and if you understand the whole pipeline, and that's what they really need. Because rest studios can train you, but you need to show like you understand the whole process, and you're really good with the basic foundations, and you are really good at basic matte painting tasks such as cleaning up, for example, or basic set extensions. Set extension is where we extend like let me just show you something here. This one. So this is an example I've done a few years back. So this was what they shot. This is let's say this is a set, and we extend this small garden into like a big forest. So extending the set. This is a classic set extension example. What kind of pay an entry-level matte painter does? I think that's a very tricky question depending upon the geographical location. So I wouldn't really answer that. A good place to get answers for that is like glassdoor.com or something. Do you guys have any other question? How would you make a digital matte painting with layers appear to be moving in Nuke? Like I said, it's a process of 2.5D matte painting, which we'll be covering in the class. I cannot explain that in 1 or 2 minutes. It's a big process, so that's why we teach this course. How many matte painters are usually working on one project? Depends upon the project, because let's say you take a studio like MPC Montreal. I know that MPC Montreal have like almost 50 people in their team. But these 50 people have different skill sets. Some are really good in 3D, some are really good in 2D, some are really good in Nuke, some are really good in Photoshop, some are really good in Maya, some are really good in texturing. It's a mix of tools and mix of skill sets. The more you understand the process, the more you know about that. But it's depending upon the size of the studio, the size of the project. It can go up to like 50 or 100 people, like 100 matte painters basically working on one project. And it can also go down to like 5 or 3 or matte painters working on one project. Really depends upon what project it is. If you take a typical TV show, I would say like at least 3 or 4 people will be working on it in a studio. But then again, most of the studios, let's say like Mr. X, we are working on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 TV shows at the same time. So we have like globally, we have like 30-40 matte painters globally. Compositing or matte painting more difficult? Everything is difficult, my friend. There's nothing is really easy. Everything is equally challenging. It depends upon what you like, what's your preferences, and where you want to go. Artistic skills, all the foundations, perspective, value, color, composition, everything related to art, photography, all these things. Yes, you can use Cinema 4D if you want to. Cinema 4D got a great projection tool called Projection Man, which is widely used in some studios. We're not going to restrict you to any specific tool or software. It's up to you what you want to use. Though we have a curriculum design based on like Nuke and Maya. Nuke, I think we would expect anybody to do Nuke because that's the most widely used software. But 3D can be flexible. It's very much a choice. Even if I show you an example in Maya, if you are very good in Cinema 4D, you can use Cinema 4D. Nobody's going to stop you. If you are already good enough with, let's say, 3D Studio Max, and I'm going to show you my example in Maya. If you can replicate that in 3D Studio Max, by all means, please. I already shown samples of my student work here. Where is it? Like these are all the students, student work. I'll show you one more, like this one. So like some of them are work in progress, like this is a final piece. And this is a final piece, but she started from she started from like this in Maya. So this is all 3D. This is all 3D, as you can see. So once matte painting is done, composited, it became like this. There's another one. I'll show you one more. Again, this is again 3D. There's another one started like that. And this is a final piece. Scripting, it's not mandatory. Like again, if your inclination is towards programming, it's a very much a valuable skill in my opinion. All right, thank you guys. Thanks a lot for attending the session. I hope I answered all your questions, and I wish you good luck in whatever your endeavors. Thanks a lot.